All right, everybody, it's the Combatcast with a man called Dave and Chevy. And as you guys know, we are on Patreon now, patreon.com/Working Fans Podcast. Check us out. I already got a couple guys subscribed to Patreon, so we're going to add some stuff to that as this year approaches. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll talk about what we got coming up on our schedule. I guess I just want to say, first and foremost, thanks for your support. Appreciate you guys this year.
Great year for the podcast.
Yeah.
Much appreciate the support.
Over 5,000 subscribers right now. Like I said, a few Patreon subscribers. So pretty cool. We just kicked it off. We haven't even officially, it starts now in January. So pretty cool. All right, before we get into what today's show is going to be, we're going to have a Patreon segment as well. Chevy, what do we have coming up after this week?
Okay, so we are still in a bit of a dry spell here for UFC. No fights until the 24th. But next week, January 10th, we're going to be doing our annual prediction show. So we'll be doing predictions for who we think are going to be the champs in each division for 2026, the fights we want to see, that kind of stuff. And then January 17th, again, no fights. We're going to test Dave's MMA knowledge, I think, is what we're going to go with. So We'll do a little quiz show, a little Q&A kind of thing going on.
Maybe for our Patreon, maybe we'll have bonus questions on the Patreon segment.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, maybe they can ask some questions. Yeah, stump us. Yeah,
and
then January 24th, we're finally back with fights. Looking forward to it. Banger of a card, it seems as well. UFC 324. Gaethje versus Pimblett for the interim lightweight belt, and that is our first 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time UFC pay-per-view. That's going to be live from T-Mobile in Las Vegas. Looking forward to that.
Hells yeah! All right, guys. Like I said, today we're going to do look at MMA for 2025. And some of what we thought were the male fighters of the years, female fighter of the years, which we thought was kind of obvious, and some other categories. And on Patreon today, we are going to, because we had a week off, we're going to look back at the Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul boxing fight. And we'll talk a little bit about the accident, an unfortunate accident that happened with Anthony Joshua too. And we will cover our thoughts on that in Patreon. But first, let's talk about 2025. Chevy, do you want to just kick off one of these categories? You got anything you want to add about 2025 before we?
Busy year.
Yeah.
As far as MMA, lots and lots of fights. Obviously, we talked about this on our last show, the end of the ESPN era now. So we're moving on from there. I drove by ESPN today. Oh, yeah. They look like they're going to be all right without UFC.
Sure, they're going to handle themselves.
But yeah, let's get into this. Let's get it out of the way. I think we know that this is going to be. Let's do female fighter of the year. Who do you got for your female fighter of the year?
It's a layup for me. It was Valentina. Listen, Kayla Harrison won the Bantamweight Championship this year for the UFC. She was great in PFL, great lineage, good for her. But Valentina is we talked about this a couple weeks ago. She looked like maybe she had lost a step about a year ago. And since losing that title to Grasso, and maybe even before that,
Santos.
Yeah, she just looked, she's come back and looked sharper and meaner than ever, from that draw with Grasso to winning her title back against Grasso to the performance she put on Weili Zhang. She just looks like, I don't even want to say the old Valentina, because it just looks like she's just better than ever. And that's unbelievable in a lower weight class, especially
39, I think.
39. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, Valentina to me is no doubt the female fighter of the year. And honestly, if she keeps doing what she's doing, there's going to be an argument for her, on that GOAT status. Right now, I think it's still Amanda Nunes, and it'll always probably be hard to topple her, but Valentina is definitely making a good case for it.
Yeah, I had the same. Valentina, for all the same reasons, just super dominant, looks better than ever, even though she's and a lot of fighters would have aged out of already. She's not just past her prime. She's probably, at the tail end of athleticism for a lot of fighters. So, but not her. She's never looked better, honestly. So with that being said, I don't want this, she could still be great, but women's MMA had a tough year. It was not the best showing for them. Is kind of all that progression that they've been having kind of stagnated a bit. They kind of everyone's just basically at the same level, except for a couple of girls who are outliers. So looking forward to some new blood and some improvement in 2026. Let's move on to the male fighter of the year.
I went Islam Makhachev. I mean, at the end of the day, I thought Ilya made a great case for it as well. And obviously, he's just taking some time off now, whereas Islam, I think, is a little more active. And, at the end of the day, it was almost really a dead heat. So it's almost kind of like looking into the future right now. And I don't know what the future holds for Ilya, and his 2025 wasn't say better than Islam or Islam. Yeah. They're both looking like the two top fighters in the world right now, who are eventually, I believe, going to be on a collision course with each other. But Islam, I mean, to do what he does, at lightweight and then, go up to welterweight. And let's not forget, too, even though he wasn't featherweight, he beat up the featherweight champion of the world, too. I talked about Valentina being, an argument for the female GOAT. Islam Makhachev is putting himself right there for the male GOAT with people like John Jones and Habib. Yeah, great year for Islam. The only other guy who I thought about putting in here, and honestly, he kind of probably cost himself, was Merab. Because Merab was just beat up everybody. But then he took that last fight, and obviously it didn't work out well, and that's a gamble you take. So at the end of the day, that's what gave me the nod to Makhachev.
Yeah, 3 title defenses, attempted a 4th, but couldn't get it done for Merab. But yeah, I'm with you. I also went with Islam. I wonder if we're just going to have the same lists for all these things. But yeah, all the reasons that you said. He moved up, super dominant. Also, he tied Anderson Silva's record for most consecutive UFC wins at 16, which is, with all the ways to lose that you can lose in MMA, to win 16 fights in a row is no easy task. So respect to Islam. Favorite UFC card of the year?
I went with UFC 317. This one had Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval on it, which was a candidate for my fight of the year. We'll talk to that in a minute. And Ilya Debourier at the time conquering. And again, we're talking going back to that fighter of the year thing. It was a real coin flip, and I almost probably kind of did let some of the personal stuff going on with Ilya probably affect my decision there, because if you go back to this card and everything like that, Ilya just looks like the man to me. What he's doing against guys like Charles, Max, Volk, incredible, absolutely incredible. And you take out a record performance like that with that incredible fight between Royval and Joshua Van, who ends up being the flyweight champion on a fluke a little bit later, but that performance there by Van was no fluke. That was a real standout card for me.
Yeah, I had the same card, 317. Other notable fights on the card. So Pantoja was on that card. He got a round 3 sub of Kai Kara-France.
Good call, yeah.
Dariush and Moicano had a fun fight. Peyton Talbot bested Felipe Lima. And then on the prelims, Gregory Rodriguez, Jose Delgado, and Terrence McKinney all got early finishes on the prelim. So that card overall was a very fun card. Even if, maybe some of the guys I wanted to win didn't end up winning, it was a fun card.
Yeah.
All right, let's move from there straight into our fight of the year.
So I didn't go with Royval and Van. Oh, that was a good one. Great fight. To me, I ended up going with Prohaska and Khalil Roundtree Jr. Both awesome fights. You could argue, I don't even think it's an argument that Van Royval, such as they're smaller, maybe that constant more excitement. But sometimes, unfortunately, when the flyweights are like that, you're in that rebuilding phase and everything like that. That was like a great coming out party for Van. But Roundtree, Prohaska just felt like the stakes were higher to me for the fight. Like there was a little more drama because one guy was going to move closer back into title contention, and one guy who, was so close is now looking like he's going to have to really work his way back up. So you take that in with an awesome fight, and that's why I ended up picking that one.
Yeah, I went the other way. I went with Joshua Van, but I mean, you can't go wrong with either one. Both fights were absolutely tremendous, but I just thought, I just remember specifically Royval kind of throwing his game plan out the window, realizing he was down and just going forward at Van and trying to, bully him, big brother him kind of thing, show him that he wasn't ready for that high level UFC, and Van just did such a good job staying calm and counterpunching and showing that he is ready. So yeah, that was a great fight, but I loved your fight too. Both guys were hurt more for sure in the Prohaska Roundtree fight. Definitely more back and forth. But
we've agreed on this, but that was the only thing we disagreed on so far. So let's see.
Yeah, let's go with best finish of the year. Who had your best finish of the year?
I went with Mauricio Rufy from the Fighting Nerds. Had that spin kick on King Green. Yep. And I had to look this up, by the way. I started looking back at some finishes because, UFC and MMA has so many great finishes. But when that one popped up, I was like, okay, yeah, that's probably it. And that might be the consensus for a lot of people. So I don't want to say like I phoned it in on that one. But like I said, I had to do some little digging on that. Like I couldn't just go by memory because there's so many finishes. That's why I love, I don't want to say that. Sometimes we're bored, but you know what I mean? There's a lot of finishes with so many cards throughout the year. So it's hard to remember everyone. But that one was like, okay, this probably definitely was.
That one was great. I went with Killian Salakid, the Australian guy. He's like knocked out a couple guys now, but he had this brutal head kick of Nasrat Haqparast at UFC 321. And I watched it back again recently, and just the sound that it makes when he knocks him out. And then Nasrat goes down, face down. He's not moving at all. It was a brutal KO. So, but the Rufy one was great too. But I feel like that's more expected.
Some submissions too, just out of curiosity. And excuse me, it's always hard to not go with the knockouts usually. But wasn't there a guy this year? I'm trying to remember the name, who had like several leg.
Oh yeah, Walter Walker. Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
That was. Yeah, he had 3 straight knee bars, I think, or leg lock finishes, and he's a heavyweight, so it's wild. That's
if we were looking at submissions here, like that was the one, and then the other one that really stuck out to me was like Sean Silva choking out Bryson Mitchell, just because that fight, particularly, I thought Silva could win, but I thought he would win on his feet striking. So for him to like tap out Bryce, who I thought had the better grappling game going into it, I was like, whoa, that's impressive.
Yeah, that was a statement for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so that one stuck out to me. That's going to wrap up, right? All right, so guys, like I said, we're in a bit of a, Chevy said too, we're in a little bit of a drought. We're waiting for UFC to come back with some great cards, but in the meantime, we'll talk about the future next week. We'll talk about some of our predictions on what we think will be champions for each weight class. That should be interesting because there's a lot of, I feel like, up in the air stuff right now. And these UFC cards coming up out of the gate, we're going to probably see some new champions and stuff. But stick around with us on Patreon. We're going to talk about Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul and some of the aftermath. Guys, thanks for tuning in.